Welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin. I am so happy to be here with you today on Friday, January 9th, 2026. And I've been thinking about something that I want to talk about today that is foundational to how we live in our reality. It's something that is just so ingrained into our society that I don't think we ever question it or rarely question it. And this is our relationship with death. And so, what I mean by our relationship with death is that, at least in Western cultures, in traditional Western culture, death is feared. And it's not just feared, it is like the biggest fear that we have. I was having a beautiful discussion recently with a few people, a small group, and one of them posed the question, what is the worst thing that could happen? And the response was, well, the very worst thing that I can think of that could happen is that I lose the people that I love. And so the person who posed the question said, well, what do you mean by lose them? And the person responded, if they died, if the people I care about and I love, if they died, that would be the absolute worst thing that would ever happen. And this is, I believe, something that indigenous people, for the most part, who lived in communion with nature and the natural cycles, they had a different view about death. And I believe that it's more of a modern problem where we're so removed from the natural cycles of nature and life that we become more removed and we become more afraid of death. But death is really a transition from one state of being to another. Yes, it's the loss of the physical body. It might be the loss of our personality, but it's not the end. It's not the end of our being. It's a transition from one way of being into another way of being. From a soul perspective, we are eternal, but we change, just like, excuse me, just like how water changes form. So if it's heated up, it becomes vapor. So it's more of that etheric spirit, kind of vapory essence. When it is in its liquid form, then it's fluid. And when it freezes, it's solid. So you can think of you as being in your solid frozen form in this dense body. But within that, you still have that vapory essence that you are. And that vapory essence continues on after the solid body finishes. And so if we think of death as, we have this personification even of the Grim Reaper, the guy who's cloaked and you can't see his face, and he's got I think it's like a Sith, is that a scythe? I can't remember how to pronounce it, but that, he's carrying that like weapon and he shows up and everybody's afraid of the Grim Reaper, right? But what if we look at the Grim Reaper as our escort? Maybe it's our friend who knows what our natural cycle is, who's in touch with what our soul plan is. And they're there to escort us from one realm, the human earthly realm, into the next realm. And whether you see death as a personified being, an intelligence, or if you just understand it as, something bigger. But I like this idea of death being a consciousness and that it being an energy and that it being of it being our friend, where it is there to escort us, it's there to move us when it's time. That's the thing. You have this soul purpose. You have I believe that our soul destiny and our free will both exist in this experience that we're having, that we have a mission, maybe we have a destiny. There's a bigger thing that is, that we are destined for, and we have the free will to go about whether we want to reach our destiny, whether we want to choose to put one foot in front of the other in favor of what we came here for or not. But regardless, we all know we have a day that we were born and we have a day that we're going to die. And we don't need to fear the day that we're going to die. And I'm not suggesting that we, bring that to ourselves prematurely, but we do know we're living beings. And just like within your body, you have cells that are constantly regenerating. So you have new cells that are coming in, but you need those old cells to slough away. You need them to die. You need cells within you to die off and to be carried away and to, be transported out of your body. This earth is a living organism that hosts living organisms. You are a living organism, and you have a day that you were born, and you will naturally have a day that you die. And you get to choose what you think about that. You get to choose if that's scary to you, or if you want to understand that there's something much bigger happening and that this human experience that you're having is but one experience in your soul portfolio, in your repertoire. It's not the only thing that you're here to, that your soul exists to do, and it's not the only thing you will do. You will continue on, and there are things that you need to complete this life in order to perhaps go on to the next thing that your soul is ready to do. You need the experience that you're gathering here in order to advance to the next part within your soul. And likewise, from a planetary perspective, just like we have cells, we've got new cells that generate, but we need those old cells to die off and to be transported away. That is how it works also from a planetary perspective, where new souls are coming in new bodies. And there is a natural cycle to things where other lives end, and we keep some balance that way, where the earth isn't meant to sustain um, lifetimes that aren't cycling off. And so, again, we don't need to, this isn't to say to become obsessed with death or to bring it forward, beyond its natural cycle. It is just to change our perspective of it. And going back to the conversation that I had recently, where somebody was saying the absolute worst thing that could happen is that they lose the people that they love, that those people die. And I definitely understand this, because it is really hard when somebody dies that we're close with, that we care about, that we love. And you are still connected beyond time and space. And whether you think about that from a soul perspective and you have soul family, I read this beautiful thing in a book. Oh gosh, I want to tell you this book, and I can't remember. It's the guy who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters. Is that Raymond Moody? Might be Raymond Moody. Um, and it's called Only Love is Real. And it's this great book. He's a hypnotherapist. Anyway, the point of what I'm talking about here is he was equating you and your soul family to a tree. And so you have branches on a tree, you have limbs on a tree, you have twigs, and there are leaves on the tree. And so if you have a twig and you've got a few, like a handful of leaves that are all in the same twig, he was saying you can think about that like your soul family. You have these souls that are really tight, that are really close to you. Oh, yes, Brian Weiss. Thank you, Patty. Um, and that you have these they're very close and you incarnate together, you're very close with them, you're kind of evolving together. But then that twig is on a branch and the branch also has leaves. And those leaves you're close with them, but they're not your family, but you're still close with them and you're still connected with them. You're still all part of the same branch. And then he was saying, but you may have lots of branches on a tree and you're still connected. There might be one way on the other side. Maybe it's a big oak tree and they're or redwood, and they're way like really, really far away, but you're still part of the same tree. And then trees have their roots and they have all that network. So even if there's a tree on the other side of the forest, you may think that you're not very connected to those leaves over there, but you actually are because they're all part of the same root system. So we all are very closely connected, but specifically when those leaves that are around where we are on the tree too, it's really hard to lose those leaves. I'm not denying that, but you are always connected to them. And Brian Weiss's work is if you ever are curious about learning more about that, he's done some amazing work through Many Lives, Many Masters in this book that I'm reading now, Only Love is Real, that will be very convincing of you understanding that life is eternal and that you have this soul family. You keep incarnating together and supporting each other. And even some of your enemies might be close leaves for you, but they're playing a role. You've agreed that you guys would play these roles to kind of pick at each other's wounds so that you have the opportunity to grow, because it is through the challenges that we grow. And so it helps us to understand that that separation that we feel when somebody leaves the physical realm, that's just an illusion. It's just a perception. They're still accessible to you and you can still connect with them. And in fact, I wasn't even going to mention this, but right now I'm working behind the scenes to create a registration page for you. Hopefully, I'll get that out later today. But I'm going to be working with Rachel Chamness to have a free class on January 31st, which is a Saturday. We're going to meet from 3 to 5 Eastern. And she is going to help you to get in touch with your own intuition, your own ability to connect with we're going to work with one Fey being guide for you and help you to connect and help you to receive the messages and understand that you're already receiving messages. And so you have this capability within you. And Rachel is going to help you to experience it for yourself through that. So there are, these are just, I bring that up because you have the ability to connect within you to those on the other side. Death is not the end. It's not the end for you. And I encourage you to change your relationship with death. If you recognize that that is your greatest fear, see if you can think about it in a different way. If you can rewrite how you see death, and if you can start to see it as a friend who is going to take you into that next realm for your benefit because it's time. And the same for your loved ones, and that just, you know, even when we lose them in the physical form, that we still have that connection with them through our consciousness. We still have the ability to connect with them. And this is what I am actively working on within myself. I'm catching myself when I, you know, when I have these thoughts about death and I feel that fear, like, it's just been part of me since forever. I've always kind of feared death. That was the ultimate fear. So I'm changing my relationship with it. I'm choosing to change my relationship with death, and I hope that you'll consider doing the same. So thank you so much for being here with me on this live stream or listening to the recording. I'd be really grateful if you can share this episode with somebody or like or subscribe or however you can kind of help with the energy of the podcast. The little ways that you do that, they're free and they do make a difference. So I'm so grateful for you. Thanks so much. I hope you have a beautiful weekend if you're watching this live, and I'll see you next time. Bless you.